Story 1. Am I the a-hole for calling someone out of their white elephant gift that was significantly under the spending criteria? A social group that I'm a part of held a white elephant gift exchange last night. Participation was by absolutely no means mandatory or even expected. The event was divided up between two pricing tiers, under $25 to $50 and $75 to $100. The majority of members went with the less expensive tier for obvious reasons, and there's absolutely no stigma within our circle for doing so. In fact, only 9 out of our nearly 40 members chose the more expensive tier, myself included. Well, I was picked to go third and I selected a gift that was wrapped quite beautifully, thinking that was a good sign, but I was disappointed to discover the gift was a hot chocolate set that certainly wouldn't have met the criteria of the lower range, let alone the one we were participating in. I could tell the others in the group felt roughly the same just by the looks on their face, and my focus was directed to one woman, Jen, who was looking away, clearly embarrassed. As you might imagine, no one took my gift. Now I know it's petty not to be happy with what you're given, but let's be honest here in saying that Jen was throwing in the sort of thing you'd find on clearance at Walmart, knowing full well she'd walk away with something pricey in turn. In this case, Jen wound up with brand new Keurig. I discreetly pulled our social group's leader aside and mentioned my concern to her. She expressed she wasn't happy with this herself and that she'd even tried to tell Jen not to participate with the more expensive tier because it was well known that Jen wasn't doing great financially, but Jen had sworn up and down that it wouldn't be an issue. We didn't want to disrupt events, so I was asked to put on a kind face and to avoid talking about the gift for the remainder of the evening, which I accepted as people were trying to have fun. This morning I received a long-winded text chain from Jen, expressing how frustrated she was that I'd demeaned her by complaining about her gift. She went on and on about how nice it must be that I can simply throw my money away while others, like her, are struggling, and that her income shouldn't mean she can't have nice things. Instead of fighting, I forwarded the text to our group leader, and I've since received word that Jen would no longer be a member of our social group. Now, if I'm being honest, I do genuinely feel bad because I know how happy being a member of this group made Jen. She has had a lot of setbacks in her life. I do not hate her or hold any negative feelings for her at all. I simply felt she was knowingly taking advantage of the rest of us to basically trade up beyond her means. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. This isn't like typical friend-family gifting where the thought still counts for something. This sounds more like a club with rules for participation to ensure everyone benefits at roughly the same level, and Jen broke the rules. Every piece of this was under her control. She could have not participated at all. She could have participated in the more affordable category. She instead gambled on social politeness and people allowing her to snag an expensive item without it costing her. And in a purely social group of friends or a family gathering, it likely would have worked because people wouldn't want to appear unkind or greedy by complaining. For an annoying cousin, I'd have kept quiet. But if I buy a raffle ticket that guarantees a $100 value prize at my local community center, I'm absolutely going to complain if they gave me a box of hot chocolate in return. The audacity to suggest that being on a budget shouldn't mean you can't have nice things. Like, yes, in this situation that's exactly what it means. Capitalism in general is based on this principle. Not the a-hole. She should have done the lower tier or not participated at all. Not the a-hole. She took advantage of the group. She wanted the more expensive group to get herself a nice gift and decided for herself that you are all too polite to point out that she is way under the price limit. Honestly, the group leader should have talked to her about that and made her exchange the present she got with the one she brought. Why is it fair that everyone should pay $75 to $100 and then get a $4 chocolate gift? There is a price range for a reason. So yeah, kicking her was the right thing to do. Jen has champagne taste on a beer budget. You're not the a-hole. You dealt with it discreetly. What she did was on her. It's really disappointing to participate in these things when folks don't play right. Which alone wouldn't be the problem. The problem is she agreed to exchange champagne for champagne but brought a 6-pack of Natty Light. Agreed, OP handling it discreetly was perfectly in order. I certainly sympathize with people struggling financially, but that doesn't entitle them to take advantage of their friends. The amount of white elephant gift crazy posts I've seen this year is definitely surprising me, although it probably shouldn't. Makes me grateful that my family's white elephant exchange is standard and boring. But for this one, not the a-hole. It definitely feels like Jen was trying to game the system, and when she got called out for it, she got upset. Yes, it sucks that she's dealing with a lot of hardships, and that's something I think most people will sympathize with, but it doesn't excuse her actions and behavior. She should have chosen to stick with the cheaper end of the exchange or just sat out entirely. Not the a-hole. Her income shouldn't mean she can't have nice things. That's exactly what it means, Jen. I've met some people who legitimately feel this way to a sociopathic degree, and they're terrifying. I had a friend like that. He legitimately got angry at the concept that he needs to make money to live. I was like, sir, who is going to subsidize your existence? How would that even work? It was me and his best friend of 20 years. He wanted us to work and just let him live rent-free in our guest room, buy his video games, and pay for his food. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for refusing to share my homemade meals with my roommate's boyfriend? So I, 25 female, have a roommate, Sarah, 26 female, who recently started dating this guy, Tom, 28 male. I cook most of my meals from scratch because I enjoy it, and it's cheaper and healthier for me. Sarah's fine with it, and occasionally I'll share leftovers with her when I make extra, no problem. Lately, though, Tom has started coming over more often, almost daily, and has been helping himself to my food. He doesn't ask, doesn't offer to contribute groceries, and never says thank you. I didn't say anything at first because I didn't want to be rude, but last week I came home to find he'd eaten an entire portion of food I'd prepped for my next day's lunch. I finally confronted Sarah about it and said I didn't appreciate Tom eating my food. She brushed it off, saying he's just comfortable here and that it's not a big deal. I told her it is a big deal because I budget and plan my meals, and if he's eating my food, it throws everything off. I made it clear I wouldn't be sharing anymore, and I asked her to let Tom know. Fast forward to yesterday, I made a pot of chili, and Tom came over while I was out. When I got back, a big chunk of it was gone. I was furious and told Sarah that this was exactly what I was talking about, and it needed to stop. Sarah said I was overreacting and called me stingy for not sharing food when it's just a couple of bites. Spoiler, it's not. I told her I'm not her boyfriend's chef and that I don't owe him free meals. Now things are tense, and Sarah's acting like I'm the bad guy here. Tom hasn't said anything directly, but I can tell Sarah told him because he's been giving me the cold shoulder. I'm starting to feel guilty, but I don't think I'm wrong for wanting boundaries here. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole, period. Tom sounds like an asshole and a mooch. You should tell Tom directly that he needs to stop eating someone else's food. You've done nothing wrong. Don't let Tom Sarah quietly act superior. Confront them both together and tell them exactly what you have laid out here and that you expect him to behave like a grown adult human and stop stealing food. Sounds like Tom needs to stop being in the apartment at all. You live there and pay rent there. He doesn't. If he is making you uncomfortable, he's got to go. Use the ugly words, like steal. He's stealing your food. Sure, he's comfortable being a thief. And now they're both working on you to get their way. Not the a-hole. Don't feel guilty, they're manipulating you. Not the a-hole for sure. You're not running a free restaurant, and Sarah and Tom are straight up taking advantage of your kindness. Comfortable doesn't mean he gets to steal your food. That's what it is, stealing. And it's not just a couple of bites, it's your time, effort, and money. Sarah brushing it off and calling you stingy is her trying to guilt trip you into letting her boyfriend mooch off you. Tom giving you the cold shoulder is just him being petty because he got called out. Stick to your boundaries, and maybe consider getting a mini fridge or locking your food up if this keeps happening. You shouldn't have to, but clearly, these two don't respect you or your space. Not the a-hole. He's not a guest anymore, he's freeloading. It's completely reasonable to ask him to stop eating food you've paid for and cooked. Sarah needs to respect that. Not the a-hole. Tom is rude and disrespectful. If your roommate won't address him, would you feel comfortable addressing him? Are both of your names on the lease? When is the lease up? Could you begin the process of looking for a new roommate? Sarah isn't interested in being a good roommate and seems offended that you don't want her freeloading boyfriend eating all your food. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for refusing to host in-laws for Christmas? I'm 26, female, married happily to 30, male. We bought a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house in 2023 close to Christmas, and as a holiday gesture, my husband asked if we could host his entire family, which includes mum, dad, 2 sisters, and their partners, for nephews, for Christmas. They would stay 4/5 nights, spend Christmas, and leave on Boxing Day. Relevant backstory: none of them live in town and all live about 5 to 8 hours drive away from us in a remote town. In previous years, Christmas was hosted at his parents' or grandma's place with other extended family members, aunties and uncles. 2023 was the first time all the members of his family could be under one roof and celebrate. I was strongly opposed because 1. I just didn't want to host 10 people for 3 nights. I'm a huge introvert and don't even want to be around my own family friends that much. 2. I didn't want to set a precedent and have it become an expectation going forward. I grudgingly accepted as a one-time thing and everyone seemed to have a blast. Adults had the rooms, kids slept on a pike in the den. I planned food menus, activities for all 3 days. Everyone pitched in and helped, especially with the Christmas dinner, and there were no major incidents. However, I was still extremely relieved when they left. Fast forward to this year and we have been asked about our plans and if we can host this year, but we both work Christmas Day. Although he's told them no for now, my husband is already insinuating to me he would like to host them for next year. I'm putting my foot down because I'm not setting a precedent to house and host every alternate year. My husband is making me feel like I don't understand the point of Christmas and it's supposed to be with family even if it's slightly inconvenient. I have suggested everyone getting a hotel and just having Christmas Day gifts and dinner here, but he feels we have the space to have everyone over. I would even be okay with maybe every 5 to 7 years but not every second year, but he wants it often so it becomes a tradition. I know he's not going to throw me under the bus, and if I don't agree, he'll be the one to tell them no. I just don't want to commit to something this big every other year. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Offer every 4th year. Mum and dad, sis 1, sis 2 and then you again. It shares the burden, and honestly it is once every 4 years. Brew, I offered this and he doesn't want to because he doesn't think his sisters would keep it up. So if his sisters won't keep it up, why should you be expected to maintain it? I think that is the easiest compromise. If other people let it fall off, then they let it fall off and you will host them every 4 years in your side. Also, why should OP do it? If he wants to host, he can also do all the work. I read OP saying she did all the work last time. Nothing about her husband doing anything. Not a hole. You have different experiences being around people and need to find a compromise. I understand why he wants to be around family during the holidays and to make the most of it. You don't get the same immersive experience when you only have people over for one meal. It's completely different from being able to strike up a casual conversation, lounge around playing cards, or have an impromptu outing. But I also understand why you want alone time. Like you, I need a certain amount of solitude or I get stressed and short-tempered. Being around that many people for longer than a weekend would be extremely unpleasant for me. It seems like there are 2 reasonable options which can meet both of your needs. 1. The family gets a large rental property for the duration, where they can all interact unlike in a hotel. You and your husband can join, but you can go back home when you need personal space. 2. They stay at your place, and you get yourself a nice room at a B&B and do your own thing, and return to the house when you want to join in an event. The first option is more expensive, and both will require presenting a united front against relatives who don't understand that introverted is not the same as rude. Furthermore, I wonder why you are the one who had to plan activities and menus, when he is the one who wants this. That's the one thing that might have made me judge him to be the a-hole. The person who wants this extremely time-consuming and exhausting event to happen gets to be the one to make it happen. The second option, of taking yourself out of the space, will force him to step into the role. If he previously relied on your labor, there's a very good chance that making him responsible for the mental load and only contributing as an assistant, e.g., performing specific tasks as requested and defined, like peeling carrots, will make him disinclined to want to host in the future, eliminating the issue. Not the a-hole. I think this is a personality introvert-extrovert or where you grew up clash. Some families like big noisy Christmases, some people have quite smaller ones. I'm guessing your husband falls into the first camp. I think once every second year is too much and you could compromise on one every 3, one for his family, one for yours, or to free you up to travel, and one just by yourselves. Or maybe extend it out to other members of the family. I would be very wary of getting locked into an obligation this early. If he sets up an every second year thing now, you will have much less flexibility in the future should you want to do different things with your time. Never say never, but have a proper conversation with him about this. Not a hole. As an introvert myself, I get it. But taking it turns is very reasonable, especially if a Christmas like that is what makes it special for your partner. He shouldn't have to go without, but it's not unreasonable for you to dislike it. Alternating is the only solution. Unless you get him to include a Christmas abroad option in the mix too. Story 4. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I did not hide from her that my sister was in fact my stepsister? My wife and I have been married for 3 years and together for 7. For context, my bio mom sadly passed during childbirth, and a couple years later, my dad married my stepmom, who had a daughter aged 1. My stepmom's husband had also sadly passed away when her daughter was only a couple of months old. Now all that say, for all intents and purposes, My stepmom is my mom and my stepsister is my sister, as they have been with me my whole life. While I was happy that my dad and stepmom loved each other a lot and bonded over shared grief, it also led to them abandoning both me and my sister. Ever since kindergarten, my sister and I kind of had to rely on ourselves, and so we have a bond, which is strong to this day. My wife is friends with my sister and she always thought our brother-sister bond was sweet. However, last week, she found out that my sister was actually my stepsister, and she freaked out. She asked me why had I hidden this from her so long, and I told her there was nothing to hide, it just didn't strike my mind to bring this up. My wife also told me a lot of the stuff my stepsister and I do is normal if we're blood brother and sister, but very weird if we're actually step-siblings. She said my stepsister is too clingy to me, and it's weird for a step-sibling. I told my wife to get her head checked, which was admittedly a bit harsh, but I just thought what my wife was saying was absolutely ridiculous. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Does your wife often watch videos on the P-Hub? Cause unless she's getting stuck in the washing machine often and ringing you over for help, I'm not quite sure what you could be doing that's so strange. Not the a-hole. While I do think it is a bit odd that this never came up even once in 7 years, this is nothing to get mad over. And, it sounds like your wife puts way too much stock in blood relation with this whole they way you two act is okay only if you were related by blood thing. Your wife is way too hung up on semantics here. I could maybe understand her being a bit confused as to why this never came up, but certainly not mad. Edit. Since some people are replying to me and seem to be hung up on this, I never claimed that Arp's mom and sister are not family or are not really his mom and sister because they are technically steps. I'm simply saying that it seems odd to Emmy that the story of how his family came to be wouldn't come up with his partner even one time in 7 years. I guess I just come from a family where not sharing this kind of stuff would be really weird. Even with my friends, at some point during our long friendship it would have absolutely come up about how my family came to be. But, I guess I'm just the type of person who makes conversation with people. I didn't know my aunt was actually my dad's cousin until I was almost graduating high school. She's not a sibling but my grandmother practically adopted her. It's something that only came up due to a project I was doing on an illness she has that has a high genetic component. My family doesn't differentiate between full half-step relations. There's so many that it's just completely impractical to keep track of who is how related. For us, it's unnecessary to differentiate. We're family, we love each other, what does it matter? Not the a-hole. The comment was a bit harsh, but she sounds like she's feeling some insecurities. I'd have a calm convo with her and reiterate that you understand how she might think it's obvious to mention something like that, but that because you grew up so close and have the relationship you have, it's not even something you ever think about. I think she's just fighting some internal feelings right now. Exactly. This is probably more about her own insecurities than anything else. If you approach it with empathy and explain why it wasn't something you felt needed to be mentioned, I bet she'll understand. Thank you for listening. If you like the video, consider like and subscribe. If you want more stories like these, turn on your notification to receive the latest stories.